How often have you sensed that something was off with those nearby, that every nice act might be hiding a motive, that what looks like virtue is just a practiced act? Nietzsche had a name for that hunch. He said, "We're surrounded by cowards pretending to be moral, people who turn timidity into righteousness and frailty into superiority." Today, you'll learn how to see through those facades. Even more importantly, how to avoid becoming like them. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about virtue. Imagine this, a family dinner where everyone nods along, fake grins, safe conversation, and a feeling of forced peace. But look closer. There's something missing in their eyes, like they traded their essence for approval. This is the world we live in now. We exist in times where goodness is a survival tool, not a belief. People aren't following principles, they're following the algorithm of acceptance. Modern virtue doesn't come from the soul. It's the output of an emotional calculator, always weighing the risk of being left out. Think of that coworker who agrees with the boss, no matter how absurd his ideas are, or that internet acquaintance who posts about every cause but never lifts a finger in real life, or that friend who shifts beliefs depending on their company. These are today's virtuous. They have no core beliefs, just well-tuned social radars. They sense the mood and shift instantly. They're moral shapeshifters, always blending in with the environment. The most unsettling thing is how expertly they change. They know the right thing to say in every WhatsApp group, the right reaction for every scenario, the right cause for every platform. Their act is so polished, they forget they're acting. Why is this so common? The answer is stark. Society punishes independent minds so harshly that people choose safety and sameness over the risk of being real. We've built a culture where it's more perilous to have your own view than to have none at all, where following the herd is easier than forging your own way. This has given rise to a generation of moral phantoms, people who are visible but hollow, present but never really known. But there's an even darker side. Some people are more dangerous than the virtuous for convenience types. I once knew a man who ranted about rich business owners, called them greedy, corrupt, evil, and spoke like a prophet against power until he inherited his father's company. Then his criticism stopped, not because his beliefs changed, but because envy finally got what it wanted. His principles were just bitterness in disguise. This is the most toxic trick of the human mind. Nietzsche called it resentment, not simple anger, but something far more insidious, a poison. It's when those who can't be strong begin to hate strength, when those who can't succeed despise success, when the powerless hit back at the powerful with morality. In On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche dissects this with relentless focus. He shows how the weak, unable to win by force, invent a morality where weakness is virtue and strength is a sin. It's a brilliant move. They don't admit defeat, they reframe the entire game. Look at social media. How many people post that money doesn't buy happiness but never say no to a raise? How many bash vanity but spend a fortune on looks? How many condemn ambition but chase more followers every day? It's like someone who claims not to care about likes but deletes photos that get to few. Or someone who condemns materialism but knows every brand they wear. Or who denounces competition but never misses a chance to act superior. Resentment is seductive because it's an elegant excuse for failure. Instead of improving, you change the rules. You say you never wanted to win, that losing is the real victory. Here's the scary part. These people actually believe in their own superiority. They aren't faking. They've built an alternate reality where weakness is purity. Not winning means not being corrupted, and their limits are proof of their higher spirit. They convince others because it is easier to believe our shortcomings are strengths than to work on them. It's easier to moralize our weakness than to build strength. But the next mask is even crueler because it weaponizes compassion. She arrived at the meeting with that familiar, gentle smile. "You look tired. Let me help." It seemed so kind. But over time, every problem she solved created more problems. Her help made her friend more dependent, and every caring gesture chipped away at autonomy. In the end, her friend couldn't decide anything without her. She became an eternal debtor to kindness, a prisoner to gratitude, while the helpful one basked in moral glow, feeding off the dependence she created. This is cruel compassion, kindness that destroys as it builds up its own image. Some people don't want to help, they want to be needed. They don't seek your welfare, they want to feel higher by making you smaller. Do you see this pattern? That mother who never lets her kids fail because she always needs to be the savior. That boss who hoards tasks, not for efficiency but to remain indispensable. That friend who only shows up when you're troubled but disappears when you're thriving. It's a devilishly subtle power play. The helper becomes the protector, you become the helpless. They are the teacher, you're the lost child. The relationship starts with built-in imbalance, and the clues are always there. They tell others about their giving, document their help, make sure everyone knows their sacrifice. When you try to stand on your own, they resist, plant doubts, undermine your confidence because your independence threatens their identity as savior. Real compassion is the opposite. When someone truly helps you, you leave stronger, not weaker, more confident, not more insecure, more capable, not more needy. Real help empowers, it never imprisons. It's the difference between feeding someone and teaching them to fish. Cruel compassion always gives the fish hand. Make sure you never forget who did it. True compassion teaches you to fish and celebrates your first solo catch. But the real question is, how often do we ourselves fall into cruel compassion? How many times do we help others mainly to feel good about ourselves? How much of our care is really about control? The answer is likely more uncomfortable than we think. But before we face it, let's meet yet another disturbing character. Her Instagram was a gallery of woes. Every story, a new drama. Every post, a new injustice suffered. The comments, wow, you're so strong, and she drank those comments like a vampire drinks blood. Every poor thing was another hit of validation. Every what suffering was fuel to keep going. She found pain pays more than joy. Know this type. The person who makes a soap opera of their life, always the victim, finding drama in the smallest things. These are the new martyrs. They don't die for a cause, they live off suffering. They don't sacrifice for something bigger, they sacrifice for attention. They've learned that in today's world, suffering is social currency. The more pain, the more attention, the more victimhood, the more moral authority. Watch it work. The colleague who always has an anxiety excuse for not doing work they dislike. The relative who uses depression to deflect any criticism. The friend who makes every setback a catastrophe. I'm not talking about genuine mental health struggles, but those who use pain as a shield, who'd rather be pitied than competent. These people resist improvement when things get better. They self-sabotage because happiness threatens their identity as a sufferer. They prefer familiar pain to risky joy. It's that person who complains about being single but turns away every suitor, or who gripes about money but ignores every chance to earn more, or who talks about illness but ignores medical advice. Pain has become their comfort zone, their identity. They can't imagine themselves except as sufferers. There's even a silent contest: who has suffered most, who deserves more sympathy, whose childhood trauma was worst. An invisible scoreboard of pain where everyone wants first place. But here's the saddest part. Deep down, they know they're wasting their lives. They sense they could be more than their wounds, but the fear of losing the attention that pain brings outweighs the desire to be happy. While they perform suffering for the world, they lose the chance to live. They become prisoners of their own narrative, and worst, they draw others into the same cell. But not everyone chooses this path. There is a rare kind of person who walks another road entirely. We never knew his full name. He worked the building's front desk, always with a gentle hello. He didn't speak much, but his words mattered. He never showed off, never sought the spotlight. We learned by accident that he supported his ill mother, paid for his brother's college, and still visited a local nursing home. He never told anyone. We found out because someone saw him there and asked why. He simply said, "Why would I? I'm not doing it for applause. I do it because it's right." This is quiet virtue. Among moral showmen and online do-gooders, some just live their values. No stage, no audience, no trophies. Like rivers that flow quietly, but feed all around them. They don't document their good deeds because they don't need to impress. They don't seek applause, they have something better: integrity. They don't compete for moral status, they don't compare themselves at all. It's the teacher who helps students after hours, never posting about it. The neighbor who mows an elderly lawn each week, never expecting thanks. The nurse who treats each patient with care, even when no one's watching. The difference is striking. The loud virtuous, always announcing good deeds, and the quiet ones, who'd do good if no one knew. Some want to be seen, others want to be true. Quiet virtue has a special strength. It doesn't defend itself because it never attacks. It doesn't prove itself because it's not in a contest. It doesn't seek validation because it's already self-validating. Like grass that quietly covers fields. Like rain that falls unnoticed but nourishes all. Like the sun that gives warmth without charging anything. Nature shows us that the most powerful forces are often silent. These people have a quality most have lost: the ability to act without expecting anything back, to give with no want for return, to be good without needing others to see it. They're not perfect, they are like anyone. But when they do, they fix things quietly. When they succeed, they celebrate without fuss. They live in a simplicity our noisy age has forgotten. Their strength comes from within, not from outside. They don't need likes or applause. Their fuel is the calm of living by their values, no matter what the world thinks. But their rarity makes us ask why are there so few? The answer leads to the biggest problem of modern morality. He grew up in a good family, admirable parents, respected by neighbors, regular churchgoers. He learned early that there's one right way to live. He never questioned it. Why would he? At school, he followed rules. At work, he followed protocols. In marriage, he did what was expected. In parenting, he copied what he'd learned. He lived in total moral certainty until his 16-year-old son said, "Dad, I don't believe any of what you taught me." It was like the ground vanished. For the first time, he wondered, what if I'm just repeating what I was told? What if I never chose my own values? This is most people's reality. They live with borrowed morals, inherited values, rules accepted without thought, principles followed out of fear, not conviction. Nietzsche saw this sharply. He saw how crowds would rather obey than think, how it's easier to follow a script than write your own, how the fear of being wrong is worse than the error itself. Think about yourself. How many of your beliefs are truly yours? How many did you just absorb from family, school, religion, society? How often do you act from your own conviction, and how often from fear of disapproval? Ready-made morality is tempting because it offers safety. No need to think someone's thought for you. No need to choose someone's chosen. No need to risk, just follow the rules. But watch what happens when someone questions these values. The one who asks, "Why is this wrong?" In a room where everyone agrees it's wrong, the reaction is instant: discomfort, annoyance, even anger. Because questioning threatens the group's comfort. It's like at a family meal when someone challenges the dominant political view, or at work when someone questions a procedure that's always been this way, or among friends when someone challenges the moral consensus. The dissenter is silenced not with arguments, but with social pressure. Don't think like that. Don't say that. You're just being difficult. The message is plain. Stay with the herd. This shows how fragile inherited values are. If they were solid, they'd stand up to questions. If they were truly good, they wouldn't need to be shielded. Needing protection from scrutiny shows their weakness. The person living in herd morality dreads conflict. Any disagreement feels like a threat. Any debate becomes a personal attack. They live in a bubble where everyone thinks alike and call it harmony. But life isn't a bubble, it's full of contradictions, dilemmas, messy situations. Ready-made morality can't handle real life. It's like using an ancient map for a modern city. When reality doesn't match the script, these people panic. They'd rather deny reality than question the script, rather live a comfortable lie than face an uncomfortable truth. But they're SA type, even more dangerous than the blind follower, the one who uses our need for belonging as a tool to control. I once knew a manager everyone admired. Punctual, polite, always helpful. He followed every rule and made sure everyone noticed. But watch closely. He'd arrive at 8 sharp, greet everyone especially when the boss was around. He'd eat lunch alone, but always return 10 minutes early. When there were witnesses, he'd help colleagues, but always with a comment about how some people weren't so dedicated. His advice was disguised orders. His concern was really control. Slowly, the office changed. People started policing themselves. They were nervous about being a minute late, about chatting or leaving early, not because the boss was watching, but because he was. This is the subtle tyranny of good citizens. People who use their own rigidity to control others, turning free spaces into moral surveillance states. They don't need formal authority, they rule through respectability. Who dares challenge someone so exemplary? Their moral untouchability gives them hidden power. You've seen this. The neighbor who records everyone's comings and goings. The coworker who knows the rules better than anyone and never lets you forget. The group member who becomes the standards enforcer. They create an atmosphere of constant surveillance. People change not out of conviction but out of fear. The environment becomes rigid, suffocating, controlled. The worst part is, they do all this in the name of good. They claim to want order, harmony, respect, but in practice, they want control. They crave a predictable world. Their kindness is strategic and conditional. They're nice to those who conform, but cold and critical to any who stray. Their tolerance is razor thin. Watch what happens when ignored. The mask of niceness drops. They become irritable, punitive, eager to make rebels pay for disobedience. They turn spaces into moral re-education camps. Every place they go becomes more tense, more artificial. People stop being genuine and start playing the good person. And behind all this, there's something deeper. These same people often have the flaws they condemn, but they've learned to hide them better. They're corrupt, fighting corruption, liars, policing honesty. Their moral rigidity is projection. They attack in others what they can't face in themselves. It's easier to police the world than to police oneself. So they create sick societies, where everyone pretends perfection, where authenticity dies, where people shrink to fit the mold. But even deeper is another problem. It was a regular Monday when a touchy topic came up at the meeting. Opinions clashed. Tension rose. Then he spoke. "I'd rather not get involved. We should keep the peace." Everyone nodded. How wise, how mature. But watch what happened every time a tough decision came. He said the same thing. "I don't want conflict. I'm for harmony." It seemed virtuous, but slowly it was clear he never took a stand on anything risky, never defended anything that could cause trouble. His diplomacy was refined cowardice. His maturity was just fear dressed up as wisdom. His principles were really just the absence of any principle worth risk. This is cowardice disguised as virtue, when fear dresses as goodness, when avoiding conflict pretends to be love of peace, when evasion masquerades as thoughtfulness. Our era has produced a whole generation of this. They learned it's safer to have no opinions than the wrong ones, wiser to stay neutral than risk losing. They've created elaborate language to justify their inaction. They say they're balanced, but they're just indecisive. They say they're prudent, but they're just afraid. They say they're wise, but really they're just cowards with fancy words. Notice the pattern. These people only discover principles when it's safe. When courage is needed, things suddenly get complicated. When something's at stake, morality becomes relative, like the friend who never takes sides even when one side is clearly wrong, or the coworker who never stands up to injustice at work, or the person who never defends anyone because they don't want to get involved. They live in a comfort zone where nothing is ever risked. They never defend controversial ideas or confront difficult people. The result is a life of moral irrelevance. They move through life without leaving a mark, never taking a stand, never defending anything that matters. They're ethical ghosts present, but inconsequential. But this comes at a price. They carry deep unease, knowing they betray their own values. They're restless, always avoiding their true selves. They know their peace is cowardice, their diplomacy is avoidance, their principles just excuses for not being brave. Confront them, and they'll just offer more justifications. "I'm a person of peace. I don't like conflict. I build bridges." But they don't build anything, they just run from everything. This attitude devastates society. When the good stay silent, only the extremes are heard. When the moderate abstain, the center vanishes. When the sensible flee debate, only the fanatics remain. But there's a vital difference between wisdom and cowardice. Imagine if everyone you know suddenly stopped pretending, gave up their moral masks, questioned every inherited value, and built their own rules from experience, not fear. Would it be chaos or the birth of true humanity? Nietzsche believed in the latter. In Beyond Good and Evil, he issued the boldest invitation in philosophy, to abandon inherited values and create new ones rooted in real life. Not to be monsters, but to stop being puppets. He called it the revaluation of all values. It's not reform, it's revolution. Not tweaking the old system, but building your own from experience, reflection, and courage. It's a scary proposal. Everything we've learned says moral rules are universal, eternal, untouchable. The idea that we can create our own seems dangerous, even blasphemous. But Nietzsche wasn't calling for chaos. He wanted something harder, total moral responsibility. Not following others' rules, but creating your own and living by them. It takes courage. It's easier to be handed a map than draw your own. Simpler to obey than to lead. Safer to walk a beaten path than cut your own trail through the wild. Why did Nietzsche think this necessary? Because he saw what few admit. Traditional values are dead, even if most people haven't noticed. We live in a time of transition. The old gods are gone, the new ones aren't here yet. Old certainties crumbled, new ones aren't built. We're in a historical storm, clinging to the wreckage of a morality that no longer fits. Look around. How many really live by what they claim to believe? How many practice what they preach? Hypocrisy is so common, it's invisible. That's what happens when we force old values onto a new world. Like using an 18th century map for a modern city. The streets have shifted, landmarks vanished, but we follow the old map. Revaluation isn't done in a vacuum. It starts with experience, deep thought, honest confrontation with reality. It's not childish whim, but the hard work of self-knowledge and critical thought. New values must be tested in real life. Beautiful ethics on paper are useless if they don't work in practice. Values must be livable, not just thinkable. They should strengthen life, not weaken it. How to start? Question everything, especially what seems most obvious. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Who taught me? Does this belief empower me or hold me back? Then experiment, try new values. See what works. Adjust as needed. Don't fear mistakes, they're part of moral learning. The result isn't a new rigid dogma, but a living, evolving ethic. Morality that grows with you, adapts to your experiences, strengthens with your challenges. Not total relativism or selfishness. Some values are objectively better, more coherent, more supportive of life. But that judgment must be ours, not blindly adopted. Revaluation doesn't mean isolation. You can create values that fit both individual and community life. The point isn't to reject all tradition, but to choose consciously what to keep, what to let go. There's risk. You can make big mistakes, create destructive values. But Nietzsche said that's better than the spiritual death of blind obedience. And here's the last secret. The person who completes this journey becomes something remarkable. He was at the height of his field. Power, wealth, influence, he had everything society calls success. But he also had something rarer, the ability to give it all up in a day if he chose. Everyone knew it, and so did he. This self-awareness didn't make him arrogant, but careful, not reckless, but wise. He knew true strength isn't using all your power, but knowing when not to. He was feared not for hurting, but because he could and chose not to. He was respected not for being harmless, but for being strong and still choosing to help. This is Nietzsche's final image, the person who has developed all their capacities, including the dangerous ones, but chooses to use them for good. The warrior who could fight but builds peace. The difference between the lamb who never attacks because it can't, and the lion who doesn't attack because it chooses not to. Between someone who is good because they're weak, and someone who is good by choice. Between virtue by impotence and virtue by strength. Our culture teaches us to admire the good person who never hurts because they never had power, who never lies because they never had secrets, who never betrays because they never had the chance. But Nietzsche says the second is greater, the one who has the power, who could harm but chooses not to, who could lie but stays honest, who could betray but remains loyal. That virtue is real because it's chosen, not forced by circumstance. It's not about glorifying violence or brute power, but about seeing that real goodness must be a free choice, not a result of weakness. That true compassion comes from strength, not helplessness. The spiritual warrior Nietzsche admires has developed all sides, the light and the shadow. He knows his capacity to love and hate, build and destroy, raise up and tear down, but he chooses to channel it for creation. He's like a martial arts master who knows every lethal move but uses it to protect, not to attack. Or a surgeon who knows precisely how to harm but uses that skill to heal. He isn't afraid of his power, he's mastered it. He doesn't flee his darker side, he's integrated it. He doesn't deny destructive urges, he's transformed them into creative strength. He's dangerous in the best way. Dangerous to mediocrity lives, injustice, utterly safe for the sincere. His power threatens only the false. There's a unique beauty in this. Someone who could destroy but chooses to build, who could dominate but serves, who could be feared but chooses respect. This person earns trust, not because he's harmless, but because he uses power with wisdom. He's someone you can trust because he could destroy you, but chooses to protect you. And here's the paradox. He is both the most dangerous and the most trustworthy person, feared by the corrupt, loved by the sincere. It's the ideal our age is missing: power in service of virtue, strength in service of justice, the ability to destroy, used to create. Not the saint who never sinned because he never had the chance, but the wise one who could but chose integrity. Today you've learned something that could change everything. That many use virtue as a mask for cowardice, bitterness, and the urge to control. That many perform goodness while avoiding the true courage to be themselves. But there's another path. The path of those brave enough to question, to create their own values, to grow strong enough for real choices, to be dangerous through competence, but hold on to their integrity by choice. If these thoughts struck a chord, if they made you question what you believed, if they opened doors you never saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. Join us as we pull away the illusions of our time and build a more authentic life.